Hey people, the Papa Keegan Show here. With consistent uploads, I know. Today, I am going to be reviewing the first episode of Season 1 for The Walking Dead, in hopes to get all the episodes done up until the most recent season, which will be coming out in October of Season 10, because I think that'd be a really good way to lead up to a decade of The Walking Dead. Just so it is known, I have watched the entire show leading up to season 10. I started watching it was either the tail end of season 3 or 2 episodes after the halfway point for season 4. I can't exactly remember the first episode I watched. That kicked me into watching, because I had seen it prior, episode wise. Another thing, I did write up a script of sorts to help me convey my message, because I do ramble a lot. If you've seen my previous episodes, you'll know what I'm saying. So let's get into it. Also, I know the lighting's bad, I look gross, camera lens is messed up, so let's get into it. The thing I loved, or I shouldn't say I loved the most, but something I noticed from the very beginning, and it was the introduction is by far the best out of any episode, of Rick at the gas station and him killing the little girl. It was so well done. They didn't rely on music that I could tell to heighten people's oh no, something's bad is gonna happen. It was solely noises that you would hear walking around in nature, or if there was no noise pollution going on. There was birds chirping, signs rattling because of the wind. You could hear his footsteps. It was so good, because it made you feel isolated and alone. You could actually feel how Rick was feeling in that situation. The first walker that was ever seen in the show, being the little girl zombie, was so good. It was one of the most iconic zombies. Somehow not the most iconic, but it was definitely one of them. As well as the simple fact that he first looks under the car, and it's picking up the dawn. At first you might be thinking, oh, this is just a little kid. And as it's walking away, and you see it, and you may be able to start telling, hey, this isn't a human being, this is probably a zombie. And it turns her to face him, and its braces are out. It has a giant section of its mouth hanging off and stuff, and it's just so good. Very, very well done as the first zombie. And spoilers, it does mirror I guess not really spoilers, it does mirror a death that happens the season later. By mirror, I mean the situation, it's not exactly the same, but the characteristics, the way Rick takes out the walker, it is very, very similar. And I wonder if they did that on purpose, knowing the roots of how everything was going to go. The friendship between Shane and Rick is so much better in this compared to the comics, and I have read all the comics up to date, and up to date being the final issue. I have read that. It was very well done, and I enjoy it. I will be reviewing these when I get the fourth and final compendium in not October, in November. the going back to the build up, it's so much better compared to the comics. You actually saw that they were friends, they were having lunch together, they were, just talking, being buddies and stuff, and you also get a bit of a look into the relationship between Lori and Rick, which isn't very good at the moment. Another thing I completely have to just give props to the phenomenal acting of Andrew Lincoln, who plays Rick. Just out of this world, amazing person, and I honestly couldn't imagine someone doing a job better than he did. So this has to do with when Rick was shot. The acting in the scene, amazing. You could definitely look at him and be like, he's definitely feeling pain. But something that I've always noticed from watching that scene, and something that stood out to me, was the very blue eyes that Andrew Lincoln has, and I don't know if they touched it up in the scene or not, because there's actually a good few scenes where Rick is either in pain or feeling down and despaired and whatnot, and you look at his eyes and they are just blue, like a summer sky blue, just phenomenal. If they touched it up, great job. If that's just how his eyes look, freaking amazing. The blue is just so deep. So the don't open that dead inside door. This is what we see after Rick is shot from a speeding chase that resulted around him. The car's wheels got blown up after a spike thing was set down. So Rick is shot. He wakes up from a coma in the hospital. It's been 2 months since the outbreak began. So it could have been 2 months of Rick being in a coma, could be longer. We don't know. So with Rick being... Well, okay, I just zoned out. Whoa. That's why I have the script here. So with Rick being in the hospital after waking up from his coma, he goes out to look through the halls, and he sees dead things. He's disoriented. He's weak. He's weak from just like the lack of nutrients and stuff that's been getting into his body. And it is revealed in a webisode why he is alive and not dead. So he comes across a door that is chained shut with a slab of like a 2x4 stuck in between the handles. And it is the don't open dead inside door, or more commonly known as the don't dead open inside door. And the scene of him looking at that door, as well as the door in general, extremely iconic. It's from the comics, from the first episode. There's a thing that happens in future episodes, which reflects it. Another thing, I'm going to try my best not to spoil future episodes, so when I review them, it'll be fresh. And I don't really feel like I should put up a spoiler warning for any episode that I talk about that came before, So if I was talking about episode 2, I don't really feel like I should throw up a spoiler warning for the episode 1. It just doesn't make sense. You've either watched this one before it, or you're up to date. There's no reason why someone would just start in episode 2. Again, another amazing acting by Andrew Lincoln was when he was in his house. after he escaped the hospital, he grabbed a bicycle from the arguably the most iconic zombie in Walking Dead history, which was the bicycle girl zombie. Morgan Lenny James, who I actually did meet in person, amazing guy, both as a actor and as his character. I absolutely love his character. I know there's a lot of people who don't because of future decisions made on his part. And it's not even really his part, it's more so the part of the showrunners and directors who didn't really know what they were doing with his character. This is a nitpick that I do have for it. It is the location of the bandages for Rick. So Rick was shot up here in his shoulder, while the bandages show it was more into his waist, which the continuity there doesn't make sense for me. And there's other parts that just don't add up in my opinion. I believe I have another one written down. If I don't, this will affect the scoring, because even though this was the first episode, it was something so blatant and easy to see. It's really hard to miss. That I don't know how it got through to the actual episode, but it did. And also, throughout the thing, he's feeling pain, and it's not like it was caused from the bruising from his first shot, which actually happened on the other side, while the bandages are on this side. So, something that sadly did not, I shouldn't say sadly, I'm happy and upset that this never went into action, and that was the smart walkers. It can be seen more in season 6 later on, but originally the walkers, and this was because of the old showrunner, his name escapes me at the moment, but is it Frank Darabont? I think it was Frank Darabont. He initially wanted the walkers to be smart, so they could run around, pick objects up, which actually goes back to the little girl zombie, and Rick thought she was a human because she picked up a teddy bear. And the smart walker in this case was Morgan's wife, who, upon seeing their house, tried opening the door. I definitely think it would have added a more horror aspect to the show, because it'd be no one's safe. If walkers can pick up and use weapons and open doors and whatnot, there's just so much that could go wrong. But and by wrong, I meant wrong for the survivors. But the issue I draw with that is the aspect of, it's not really zombies, then it's more just infected people who are eating people, because they still have motor capabilities. They can run after people, they can use weapons, they can open doors. At that point, it's really just dumb zombies, or dumb vampires who, instead of just drinking blood, they eat the body. Another thing I liked, which was a smaller detail that I actually picked up rewatching it, and that was the way Rick found out that his family was alive. I knew, because it stated that it was because of the albums and the photos missing, the family photos and whatnot. The part that I noticed was that it was because of him being a cop and whatnot. It gave him, I shouldn't say gave him, but it was said in a way that made it seem as though, because he was a cop, that his detective brain or cop brain was able to pick up on these small details, and that's something I personally like. Rick killing the bicycle zombie, I know I've said it a few times already, but it is so goddamn iconic. Him going up to her and apologizing and then, shooting her. So iconic. And then something that, I guess, parallels it in an opposite way. So, yeah. Or I shouldn't say parallel. The action is parallel to it, of him also aiming at a zombie, but instead going in the opposite direction and not being able to pull the trigger, which was Morgan aiming at his wife with a rifle that Rick had given him. Something else that we see with Rick driving on, I believe it was I-85 into Atlanta, was him going on the radio and actually contacting the group that his family, as well as his best friend Shane, was in. We do see that Shane and Lori are in a relationship, and we find out that Lori is Lori. As Rick is driving, he pulls down the whatever you want to call it, and there's a photo of Lori tied to it. Rick entering Atlanta on the highway with all the cars trying to leave it is, again, I know I say it a lot, but so damn iconic. It really makes you feel like he's a badass. He sees all these cars, but he doesn't care. He wants to get to his family. Absolutely love it. Rick running into the horde, fighting them, and then going under the tank. Another issue I do have with it is him with just one hand, firing guns and killing them. I've fired a gun before, a gun with a lot less kick than a revolver, and you need two hands if you want to be accurate, especially if you're aiming for a small target, which is the head. It's just very unrealistic, and I know as zombies it's not meant to be realistic, but if they're going to go and take an account of Rick firing a gun inside of a tank and him going deaf, they should take into account that even though he is a cop, he's not a sharpshooter by any means. Glenn over the radio in the tank, again, iconic, especially with Space Drunk, the song playing in the background as it's pulling away from the tank and it's showing the zombies eating the horse, and it's just showing how screwed Rick is. Absolutely iconic. Now, to wrap this up, I'm going to give this episode a rating. After I finish this season, I'm going to give this season a rating, and once season 10 comes by, I'm going to rank all the seasons in my personal favorite to least favorite order. I personally would rate episode 1 of season 1 a 9.7, nearly perfect, but with some issues that just aren't consistent and don't make sense to me. Otherwise, love the episode, and yeah.